How's it going, everybody? And welcome to the AAT podcast, episode number 4, with myself, Addi.
And Aiden.
How are you?
Not bad, buddy.
Yeah.
How are you?
Good evening, Aiden.
Good evening, Addi.
So today's podcast we're going to be talking about is one of the all-time greatest TV shows. As we did mention beforehand, that we're going to be talking and revisiting classic AT shows, as well as modern-day TV and film and cinema. And today's podcast we're going to be talking about one of the greatest shows, my personal favourite of all time, the A-Team. Mm-hmm. And I have to do the description if you don't mind.
No.
As they said in every intro. So, for those who don't know about the A-Team, it was like this. In 1972, a crack commando unit was sent to prison by a military court for a crime they didn't commit. These men properly escaped from maximum security stockade to the Los Angeles underground. Today, still wanted by the government, they survive as soldiers of fortune. If you have a problem, if no one else can help, and if you can find them, maybe you can hire the A-Team. Dun, 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 dun. I just have to do that, I'm sorry. I'm just so sorry I had to do that. Because it was just like, if you look at it nowadays, before going into our subject, nowadays programs, you know, modern day TV, they don't really have those intros anymore, do they?
No.
Knight Rider had a great intro. That was out the same decade as the A-Team, wasn't it? Airwolf, similar to it. Street Hawk, you're not too familiar with that one, which we're going to get down there.
We'll get that.
Yeah.
A part of the 80s Revisited. We're
Yeah.
going to be discussing a lot of TV shows and films that came out.
Definitely. And then there was also other shows. One thing about the shows back then was
Majorly unrealistic.
in a way, yeah. I mean, the A-Team was kind of like near enough the top
pinnacle
of it.
of unrealistic.
Yeah, the pinnacle, yeah. And what it was funny about that was, what was really funny about it was the fact that a lot of bullets went off everywhere, but nobody died.
A lot of explosions.
Again, nobody died.
Yeah.
A lot of car accidents, but they all got out unscarred.
Yeah.
Well, the minor scars, but not a major.
Yeah, not by those like hurting the leg, dropping to the floor or anything. They all just walked out and that was fine.
Yeah, that was fine.
No, nothing hurts me.
Nothing hurts.
I'm an 80s actor.
And but it's like when you go back, then it's kind of like revisiting greater times, and it was. A lot of people loved the 80s. It was like, to me, not just because it was the best decade ever, but still in all general, it was brilliant.
It wasn't. If you look at the 18s compared to now.
Yeah.
Now it's more. Now it's more realism.
Yes.
It's more realism. It's more about you know, how people typically live their lives. You know what I mean? But back then, I think it was more escapism, getting away from reality, getting away from typical lives. And again, the 18. Come on, who would ever? I mean, even if you are in the army, would you actually live a life like that? I would never know myself because I've never been in the army. But would you live a life like that?
Probably not.
Exactly.
But you know, if you're doing a good deed like what they do every day,
Yeah.
you know, in every week's episode where they hire their skills out to people who can't, you know, fight
Well, like
for themselves.
freelancers, aren't they?
Yeah, so that's where the
Badass
term
freelancers.
soldiers of fortune come from.
Yeah, you wouldn't hire one to be a plumber, would you?
No, you wouldn't. Especially BA. Everyone's favourite, I reckon.
BA would get angry for no reason.
Hey man, this ain't working!
What kind of a wrench is this?
So today we're going to, again, like I said, we're talking about the A-Team. We're going to talk about the character descriptions, how the show got started, how each actor got cast for that role, what happened behind the scenes. There's this documentary that they made a while ago, and it's even on YouTube. It's called Bring Back the A-Team, and this was bringing back the surviving cast members. And you hear about what actually happened behind the scenes of that show from each actor's point of view. And it's some of the stuff you hear on there, it's like you couldn't believe it actually happened, but it happened. And that's what was really shocking about it. So,
well, the settings they were working in, it'll play on anyone's mind. And if you think to be actually playing a part of the TV show The A-Teams, you know, it might get you a little bit.
Yeah,
so
that's true.
I'm actually playing one of the guys from the A-Team. I might try and act like them in real life.
But you never know, because actually some of them actually had military backgrounds. Mr. T, who played B.A. Baracus, was a military policeman. I think so. George Peppard, who played Hannibal, was in the Marines for a while. And there's another character who came in the 5th season called Frankie. Well, he was played by Eddie Valles. I think Eddie Valles.
No spoilers.
Yeah, sorry, my mistake. And and yeah, I think he was in the Marines or the Air Force for a little while. So yeah, so them three brought in a sense of realism to it.
Fantastic.
Yeah. So we'll get into the character descriptions first. So there were 4 members of that unit originally. There was Colonel John Hannibal Smith, sorry, Lieutenant Colonel John Hannibal Smith, who was the mastermind, the strategist, he made everything happen.
He was the brains.
He was definitely the brains behind them all. He was the brains, and he always had the cigar in his hand, the leather gloves on, regardless how hot it was. He always had those leather gloves on.
Failed, didn't he? I wonder how dehydrated he actually got.
Yeah, but
because he was such a badass, he never acted like he was dehydrated.
And he'd be like, always like, well, I love it when a plan comes together. The catchphrase he always used to drop.
And then he takes his temperature, man, I'm 40 degrees.
Yeah, I'm alright.
I need to drink some water. 2 leather jackets.
Yeah, and then you had Murdoch, who was played by Dwight Schultz, and Captain H.M. Murdoch. H.M. actually stands for Howling Mad Murdoch, and that was actually the character's name, Howling Mad Murdoch. You always wondered that was a nickname. No, that was the character's actual name on the show, which was still quite hilarious. Yeah, which was still hilarious, I would imagine. Yeah, and he was like basically the pilot. They needed anything. He could fly anything from jets to planes to helicopters, and he was still great on the ground.
So he was
as well.
Mr. T's worst nightmare.
Yeah.
Not only was he crazy, but he flew planes, and Mr. T does not like planes.
He hates flying.
Plane.
I hate flying as well.
You hate flying?
I don't like the takeoff, the turning, and the landing.
I love the takeoff.
Just the landing just puts you off a bit.
Oh, the landing. There was a point where the plane went on its side.
Ooh.
Was about to land. And I looked down, and I could see. I was like literally just all the way down the window. You could see the ground, or just. I was terrified. Yeah, I look up, and you look up, and you see the wing.
Oof.
Upwards, just.
That's an image to have, an image and a half, I would say. Yeah, and then you had Murdoch was just like, we need to get out of the hot spot. Call Murdoch in as well. And it was funny how they always he was actually clinically insane, or supposedly clinically insane, but he actually wasn't. They just needed that as a cover up to if they need to break him out of prison or the site, the mental hospital. Yeah, then okay, we need to borrow him for a few days on a day pass. So and so's passed away in the family, or we need to give a kidney transplant. They actually did that throughout the series as well. And then you had this one had the best name without a doubt, I think. And that was Lieutenant Templeton Faceman Peck. That is such a cool name, Templeton Peck. It's unusual, but that's what makes it sound so cool.
Well, for these names, it's just amazing, aren't they?
Exactly, yeah. And Face was just basically the suave, charmingly handsome guy that the team needed anything for any mission. Face would go get it, whether it was a plane to a girl's phone number for himself, getting the best hotel, getting the best vehicles, anything.
He did the film producer as well, didn't he?
That was epic. That was epic in the first ever episode. I do remember that one. One of the best scenes in that was when they're describing each and every one of them. Hannibal, one of his other great qualities was a master of disguise. That was just epic. The master of disguise pulled it off. Goes to show how much of a great actor George Peppard was.
Well, it's like when he meets up with Amy.
Yeah.
He played that homeless dude.
Yeah.
And then he played Mr. Lee.
Mr. Lee from the Laundrette.
Man, I fell in love with that show. The first episode. I'm hooked now.
I'm glad I helped you.
I'm absolutely hooked.
And then you have we have to save the best one for last, and that is Mr. Sergeant Bosco Albert Baracus, short for BA, which actually meant bad attitude Baracus, and that was played by the legendary Mr. T, everyone's personal favourite. And he was like the team's strongman, the mechanic. Even when Face couldn't get his face messed up, he just called BA in for him. BA. Then he just called me. Like, I hate saving you all the time. You're a higher rank than me. You're supposed to be fighting. You're supposed to be a better fighter than I am.
I started winning it in episode 1. This is how far I've got. When they're winning the bar.
Yeah.
And it has to see. Who did it ask to see? Hannibal and Amy.
Yeah, Manny
Yes.
Cortez.
Yes.
Yeah.
And everybody just stands up, and Amy goes to Hannibal. Is this meant to happen? He goes, no.
And
You
then,
think, oh damn. And
Okay.
then later on, that you see that big guy.
Yeah.
And later on, Mr. T just kicks
kicks-
open the
oh,
door.
that was amazing.
Is
That
that
was.
B&A?
It's like, yeah, you want tough, you got tough. Yeah. Here comes the.
And here comes the next big dude.
And he's even bigger than Mr.
Yeah.
T. I thought Mr. T was. Well, he's quite a tall guy, isn't he? He's about. I think he's about 6'1". I
Mr.
reckon.
T?
I think he's about 6'1".
I don't think he's that tall.
I think between 5'11" and 6'1". Because if you looked at him when he did Rocky 3, he looked a bit taller than Stallone.
Yes, and Stallone's 5'10", isn't he?
Yeah, so Mr. T is a bit reasonably taller, I would say.
Well, he looks small compared to that dude, though.
Oh,
So I
of
wonder how big
course.
that guy.
Well, then again, look when down the line when you have a few pro wrestlers coming. I'm not going to ruin which one it is. I'm not going to ruin that.
No
bit.
spoilers.
Yeah, no spoilers. And you have a few other guys, and they all make Mr. T look like a child.
See, that's when you know.
It's going to be a good
Yeah.
episode, yeah. So yeah, and then you had a few over time. You had a few girls who joined it. You had Amy, the first one.
Mhm.
AAA, that was cool. The name. AAA.
I love that.
Yeah, she was quite very attractive lady,
She is.
Melinda Cooler, who played her. And what was interesting about that first ever episode was when she goes, "Oh, what about this commando unit who broke out this senator's kid?" And goes, "Oh no, it's all a myth."
I love the intro to them. I
Yeah.
love the intro. You know, they say when it's a myth and everything else, and the journalism tracks it down.
Yeah.
Tracks it down. You think. I just loved how they gave them that introduction.
Yeah,
And then when they brought in Hannibal, when the first time you actually start to realise that they're going into the A-Team is when you see Hannibal dressed as that. What was it? Was he just
monster, that sea monster.
yeah? Like, they had a name to it, didn't it? It's like dressed up as and he was coming out of the water,
Yeah.
and the director's like, "Come on,
Johnny.
what's up there?"
And then Face turns up. And Face kind of ranked like he was a big guy. Even after that first episode, they actually changed Face. They do actually, because I've read about it, because
So the guys aren't playing him anymore.
after that episode, because they thought A, he was too tall, and B, he was too young to look like he was in Vietnam. Tim Dunning.
They have a point because Vietnam was years before the.
I think it was about 10 years before, wasn't it, when it ended? I think.
I'm not too sure.
Yeah.
I'm not too sure.
Because obviously we're not-
160s.
That's round about one of
We're
them.
gonna have to do some research.
Yeah,
on that.
round about. And yeah, so then they brought in Dirk Benedict, who carried on for the rest of the show.
Okay.
Because originally that was the guy they wanted, but when I think another show he was going to do fell apart, then they immediately hired him on the spot. So yeah, so that was all their descriptions. You know, Hannibal, the brains, Murdoch, the pilot, Face, the equipment manager, quote, ladies man, and BA, the strong man and mechanic.
The mechanic.
Yeah,
I loved it how he that bus that he got
yeah.
where they was going after.
Boss!
Yeah, and then he put all that armor on it.
That was epic. That was epic. That was. And that was amazing. You know, back then there was no CGI, there's no wire work, there's no what do you call it? There's no any fancy effects that you get nowadays. It was all handheld, practical effects.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, CGI. Don't forget that kind of style was actually available. You had Star Wars,
Yeah, exactly.
so they could have done it, but I'm glad they didn't.
Yeah, I think it would have downgraded the show.
Yes,
Yeah.
it would have downgraded everything that the A-Team stood for.
Exactly, and A actually stands for Alpha Unit.
Makes sense.
Yeah, Alpha Unit, or that A team. That's where it comes.
Because they're all alpha males, aren't they?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Especially BA.
And Face. Actually, all of them were. 'Cause
Hannibal's definitely.
definitely the alpha, the head alpha out of the group,
Mm,
and BA is the strong alpha,
he's just a badass alpha, isn't he?
badass
A
Baracus.
quiet one.
Yeah,
But if you mess with him, I'll pity the fool.
I'll pity the fool who gets on his wrong side.
Man will kick the hell out of you.
He would. I mean, look at him. He's like, look at Mr. T. He was actually a big star before the show happened.
Yeah.
What did he do? He did Rocky 3. He was huge in that movie.
Massive.
And it was a huge movie itself. And if you look at it, now we're going to get into how the show got started now. So how the show got started, the producer Stephen J. Cannell came up with a great idea. So he says, I want to do a modern day show like The Dirty Dozen, The Magnificent Seven, The Seven Samurai. He goes, it's going to be about this group of guys who go off and do missions, help the innocent people out. And they said, you know that guy from Rocky 3, Mr. T? He goes, yeah, he drives the car. So right away, they had in mind, who they wanted as this main guy, because it was interesting to find out what would this overnight star, and he was an overnight star, wasn't he, Mr. T? Rocky 3 came out, everybody was like, who is this guy? With the mohawk, the gold chains, and one thing was...
If you look the part...
Yeah, and he got the part like that.
It's like The Rock.
Yeah.
You know when he was in the WWF?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, WWE.
Yeah, now it is.
That's what I grew up with, the Attitude Era. You know, he looked incredible, didn't he?
Oh, yeah.
And then all of a sudden, like Hollywood came calling.
Yeah.
If you look that good, like The Rock did, Hollywood's gonna come.
Yeah,
calling,
he still looks good.
That's what happened to Mr. T.
Yeah, exactly. He had a unique look to him as well, and he was intimidating, very intimidating. But a lot of people who worked with him said he is intimidating, but sometimes he can be very, very sweet.
Sometimes.
Sometimes, yeah. No, apparently when he used to because a lot of kids looked up to Mr. T. I think they still do.
Oh yeah.
He was a sweet guy, and they said that.
You put a post of Mr. T in a young lad's or young woman's or young girl's bedroom, right?
Yeah. Well, anyway, you could put it anywhere, like outside or anything. It's like, oh, this is Mr. T.
Kids, being a boy or girl, if you put that kind of poster in the
back in them days, yeah,
they'll look up. Or even now,
yeah.
Like I said, you look up to him now, because he's a good role model.
Yeah, he's a great role model. I mean, like, look at him. He's a big, strong dude. He had an amazing rags to riches story. He grew up very, very poor.
Yeah.
But his brothers encouraged him to build his body up, like hit the gym. And that's when he got into the bodyguard business as well. And did you know he had a business card, and it said on it, next to God, there is no better protector than I. And he bodyguarded countless stars like Diana Ross, Muhammad Ali, a lot of boxers. I think Steve McQueen was one of them. And then it makes you wonder, why does Muhammad Ali need a bodyguard?
Yeah.
But then you got a big guy
and
next
you
to
got
you.
Mr. T.
Yeah, and with a mohawk and all the gold chains and everything. But that says a lot.
You can't go wrong with Mr. T.
Definitely can't go wrong with Mr. T. And
You'll probably still be able to do it now.
Yeah, definitely. If you said no to him, he'd be like, who are you saying no to?
You say no, fool.
What'd you say, fool? Don't hit me. Anyway, and then, yeah, so the show actually got started, and then when it came to the casting, which we're going to talk about now, believe it or not, Mr. T was the only actor out of all of them who didn't audition. All the other actors had to audition.
So he was automatically casted?
Automatically. They wanted him right from the start. He had no say of who the other actors would be, but Mr. T was already in there. As soon as they saw Rocky 3 and it became a big hit, they said, let's get that guy on there. He's the guy.
Well, if you look at BA and you look at Clubber Lang,
there's no difference.
There's really different differences between the two. Maybe a couple, but the majority, they can relate.
Yes, of course.
Or than the attitude, BA can be, he loves kids.
Yeah, I mean, he says that.
I don't think Clubber Lang would.
Well, because if you look at Clubber Lang, not going off topic, but in a way, but if you look at Clubber Lang, he's not really a bad guy. He's not really he wasn't, because all he wanted was a shot at the title. And I remember watching this interview with Mr. T when Rocky 3 had come out. He said that this guy doesn't hate people. People misjudged Clubber Lang. All he is the #1 contender in the world.
He wants to get what's his.
Yeah, he wants a shot at the title. He feels like he's being neglected. That's why you see him in that scene in Rocky 3 where he's talking to Rocky when Rocky's been giving the statue, and he goes, you getting out while you can, don't give the sucker no statue, give him guts. Funny, I still remember the dialogues. And yeah, and what was really funny about it was he goes, you got your shot, give me mine. Give me the same chance you had. And it's true. If you look at it, Rocky had twice the chance.
Oh yeah.
And just give this guy one chance.
Yeah, and that's all he had.
That's all he wanted.
And
was the
bang,
one.
took it.
Yeah. And
you champ.
Yeah, after the second round knockout, embarrassing knockout for Rocky. And yeah, so when it came to like I said, when it came to casting, Mr. T was already in. Well, then it came to hiring Dwight Schultz, who played Murdoch, the pilot. He auditioned and he got the role. But they said the difficult part was finding Hannibal. Originally there was going to be another actor who played Hannibal, James Coburn. I'm not sure if you know. James Coburn was a very big star back in, I think, the 50s or 60s. Unfortunately he's passed away now. And originally he was going to be Hannibal. But George Peppard had a reputation at that time for being, quote, what you get nowadays, the Hollywood bad boy.
Yeah.
Very difficult to work with, always drunk.
If you want a popular show,
yeah,
and you got somebody like Mr. T there, you don't want to bring a bad boy onto the
You don't want to. You don't want to. Because he'll put that bad boy in his place.
Exactly. And then all of a sudden your star's gone.
Yeah, your star's gone. He's not going to want to work with you guys.
Especially the brains of the operation when somebody's playing Hannibal.
Yeah, of course. And then what happened was, when it came to casting Peppard, he was always a drunk. Believe it or not, he was actually going to do another show at that time called Dynasty. It was quite a popular show back then, and he got kicked off the show because he had a bad attitude.
So they got lucky, really, didn't they? If
Yeah.
you think about it, right? You're talking about him being drunk.
Yeah.
In the last show that he did before it ended.
Yeah.
Right, before he got kicked out.
Yeah.
They're kind of lucky that he didn't do that in the A-Team as well.
Of course, yeah. They would. That was actually his last chance to redeem himself. Peppard was a big star.
A bit like Robert Downey Jr.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, like for example, Peppard was a big star. He was a huge movie star. He did movies like Breakfast at Tiffany's, which was a big movie with Audrey Hepburn, and
wow.
Yeah, he was a massive star back then, and but obviously people who grew up in the 80s always remembered him as John Hannibal Smith. And what happened was when they casted him, the director went and found out he felt a bit sorry for him. He was like, look, well, you come on, but you have to seriously behave yourself. Do not give everybody attitude. And then here's an interesting story. Then, like I said, I was watching this show called, the documentary called Bring Back the A-Team. And
There's a documentary?
it's on YouTube. You can pretty much watch it. Yeah. And so like, well, I was watching an interview with Dwight Schultz, who played Murdoch. He goes, what happened when you got casted in the role of Murdoch? He goes, oh, I went into the makeup trailer and Mr. Peppard was there. And I politely introduced myself, and he goes, and I said, hi, Mr. Peppard, I'm Dwight Schultz and I'm playing Murdoch. And his exact words in return was, very good, I am George Peppard and I'm not a very nice man. His opening line, I am George Peppard and I'm not a very nice man.
Great first impressions.
Great first impression, yeah. And
this is being honest.
Yeah, he was being honest and everything. And like when it came to getting Mr. T on board, Peppard didn't really like Mr. T very much. That was really shocking to me to find out years later, because of the fact that Peppard was, because if you look at it on the show, Hannibal and BA get along great. The characters get on amazingly, don't they?
So it's all this. It's a saying. You never know what happens behind closed doors.
Exactly. Yeah.
May look sweet on camera.
Yeah.
What's it like? What's it like behind?
Exactly. Like, I was really shocked myself to find out. Like, you know.
It shows you how good they are.
Yeah, they're great actors. And Mr. T isn't really an actor, is he?
No.
Believe it or not, before he did Rocky 3, he had no acting experience. They looked at him as what do you call it? The world's toughest bouncer. Stallone saw him on that, and he goes, I want to meet this guy.
Yeah, but the thing is, when you see something in somebody,
yeah,
they always got an aura about
that spark.
Right? Yes, that potential, and that's what Sylvester Stallone did.
Yeah,
he saw that spark, he saw that potential, and he thought, I don't care if the guy has any experience at all in acting or anything. This is my man.
For the
and
role,
I'm gonna get him, and I'm gonna put him in the film.
Yeah.
Just imagine if he didn't put him in the film.
Nobody else but Mr. T could have played Clubber Lang without a doubt. Nobody. It's like nobody but Dolph Lundgren could have played Ivan Drago.
He took it to fish and sea. That's how he took it.
Yeah.
Natural.
Exactly, yeah. And so when it came to, like I said, behind the scenes, there was a lot of problems with them. And when they met Mr. T for the first time, they said, everything you're wearing, the feather earrings, the gold chains, the mohawk, whatever you do not change how you look right now. This is going to be a fashion trend for everybody. Kids started imitating Mr. T, didn't they? They started cutting the mohawk and started trying to get as much jewellery on them as possible.
Wearing them down like, gonna go shopping. Oh man.
Apparently, all that jewellery weighed about 50 or 60 pounds of weight.
I can see why he has such huge muscles on his shoulders and neck.
Yeah.
Carrying all that well along with it. I wonder if he went to sleep with it.
No, apparently he took it off him. It took him about an hour to take it off every night. But so what happened was, then Stephen J. Cannell, who created the show, one of the producers, he had a special effects person say, can you just make this certain thing that looks like it's a lot of jewellery, but it's not a lot of jewellery, you know, a prop. So he had like a little hook on the side of it, so he just connected it, and then it started looking like, oh, so it calmed it down.
Okay.
So it calmed it down, and he still saved it, Stephen J. Cannell.
Less chance of breaking his neck.
Yeah. Because I think it was probably causing him a lot of strain. Because
Well,
if you look at it, he was always wearing a weightlifting belt.
I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're Arnie or anything. If you've got that much weight on your neck,
It's going to cause
it's going to weigh down you.
Of course it is. It goes without saying. And then you have, and then, yeah, so, and they brought, and then, so what happened was on the show, the documentary Bring Back the A-Team. And so, unfortunately, Peppard had passed away. And what happened was when they brought back on, so when they were interviewing each one of the stars, when they first went to Murdoch, Dwight Schultz, and they said to him, what was it like, what happened when you first got the role? And he told them the story about, I went and then introduced myself, and he said to me, I'm George Peppard and I'm not a very nice man. Because he still hasn't forgotten that even till today.
That's incredible.
It's incredible. It's like, I didn't imagine that to ever happen. Nobody would.
He looks like a nice guy.
He looked like a nice guy, but apparently he had, like I say, Hollywood reputation, difficult to work with. He was so difficult to work with. Like, apparently, here's an interesting thing. Dwight Schultz says, George was this type of guy that, this is what he said on the show, George was this type of guy that if he saw a gun on set, a small gun, George would walk off the set and come back with an even bigger one.
So he was always competing.
Always competing. It was like, level of competition was like skyrocketing through the roof, which is quite funny. And then, when it came to, they went to, then apparently they were going to fire Murdoch after the first episode. They said, because there's this thing called dials, and that, you know, if the dials are going well, it goes all the way to the right. That means, oh, this character's great, we keep him on. If it's terrible, it goes all the way to left, we're going to fire him. And then what happened was, Dwight Schultz's dials were completely off the charts. Everyone fell in love with that character. You wanted to hate him, because he was crazy, but he was just like the proper comic relief of that group.
It's Murdoch, I love him.
He's Murdoch, yeah. The funny thing is, you never see him without that leather jacket. You never see him without that cap. Because it's true, nobody but Dwight Schultz could have played Murdoch.
Murdoch is the man.
He was without a doubt. He was the man.
He's probably my favourite character.
I can imagine. I think he was loads of people's favourite character. It's next to B.A. Baracus. And then when it came to when they interviewed Dirk Benedict, who played Face, and they asked him as well, so what was it like when you first got the part? He goes, what was it like working on the A-Team? He goes, oh, it was so much fun. We were just guys who we'd shoot guns when we wanted, we'd kiss, I got to kiss the girls when I wanted, I got to drive the cool Corvette when I wanted, and because we were just guys. We think like it was a guy show, written by guys, acted by guys, directed by guys. That's what he'd always say. And they said, what was it like? I guess the interviewer said, what was it? Is it true that there was a lot of fisticuffs between Peppard and T? He goes, it was. He goes, it was shocking. He goes, Peppard couldn't accept the fact that he was a movie star, and out of nowhere, this big black guy with the mohawk, the gold chains, he's all of a sudden become an overnight success. Because if you look at the opening sequence, it says the A-Team starring George Peppard, and Mr. T's name comes last,
Mr. T.
and Mr. T is B.A. Baracus, which was quite funny. And then, believe it or not, Peppard would never talk to Mr. T. Never talked to him directly. He used Dirk Benedict as a messenger.
Oh, come on.
I'm not exaggerating.
Are you serious?
I'm
Oh,
to the reference of the great Dirk Benedict, that is what he said. He would never talk to him, and he wouldn't even address him by his name. He actually said, so basically put it this way, you have...
I could not get along with somebody like that.
I couldn't get, nobody could get along with it. It's just too much ego.
That would do my head in.
Yeah, because he said, that, even like Dwight Schultz said the same thing, is Hollywood is a place of egotism. Once you've hit something big, you think you're better than everybody else. And it's true. You still get people
Very
like that.
rarely you stay humble, you stay modest. In
Very
Hollywood.
rarely you find a handful of people.
Tom Hanks is one of those that have stayed.
Tom Hanks, yeah, great actor, great. He seems like an all-round nice guy. Same thing with The Rock.
Oh, The Rock, yeah.
Same thing with, I would say, with Stallone and Schwarzenegger. Schwarzenegger has been quite humble, apparently on set.
Well, he grew up in a humble background.
Yeah, he did. He did. He grew up in a tough military background. His father was I think he was an army officer in Austria.
He has to be one of the next.
Yeah, and same thing with Mr. T. Mr. T was like that as well. Even like, and then so as I was mentioning, when he was Peppard's using Dirk Benedict as the messenger. So this is what he said. He goes, I would sit in the middle. George would be on my right side, T would be on my left. And this is how he would talk to. I know this is shocking to you even from the experience right here. And he goes, this is what would happen. He go, Dirk, would you tell that man with the gold that next time we say our lines, he says it slowly? He goes, and then he does this. Yeah, yeah. And he goes, you want me to? All right, fine. He goes, T, George is saying, could you do this? And Mr. T is sitting there doing this. Sitting there laughing. He goes, George is saying, can you next time do your lines but say them slowly? And you sit there just going, like laughing like a little kid with so much gold jewellery on it. And then he goes, tell Mr. Pod I ain't no actor, but I'll do my best. And then he goes, right, fine. George T says he'll do his best. And that's how he would talk to him. He was just like, they said whenever they used to go out filming, Mr. T was mobbed by fans. Kids would run to him, kids would jump off, like say they filmed on the Universal Studios lot, and then you have the tour guide. The tour bus would stop, the kids would jump off and run and hug Mr. T. They just loved him so much. And they said there was a day where he went to visit a kids' hospital. All the kids loved him. And they said that he even brought them all on set one day. He didn't spend like an hour with them, he spent the whole day with them.
Oh, wow.
That was so sweet. That was really a really sweet gesture of Mr. T as well. Now you can understand why Dwight Schultz says, T can be intimidating, but sometimes he can be very, very sweet. And if you look at it, he blew up overnight. Because think about it, you had all the merchandising, you had the action figures, you had the fridge mag, you had everything, the T-shirts. Even who didn't want to live in that van he had?
If you don't want to live in something like that, if you don't even want to drive something like that, you've got issues. Like it's like the DeLorean.
Oh yes.
Oh my God, who would not want to be in something like that?
It's like the Batmobile, or one of James Bond's many cars.
The Batmobile.
The Night 2000 from Knight Rider, which we're going to be talking about down the line as well.
80s Revisited.
80s Revisited. And then you also have, what was it? Remember the show Airwolf, the classic helicopter? If you don't, well, I'm not going to ruin that. You have to seriously watch the first ever episode.
You're going to immerse me in all these TV
yes,
films.
I'm taking that with pride.
Yes.
This brother over here. Right.
Let's do it again.
Right. So then when it came to interviewing Mr. T, he was the most difficult one to get hold of, because you can imagine Mr. T being everywhere and everywhere else.
Yeah.
And then they managed to get hold of him, and then when they finished interviewing Benedict and Dwight Schultz, they said, "Will you come into the reunion?" They were both like, "Yeah, we'll be there, right away. We'll be there." And they said that as well. When Mr. T got interviewed, he was like that going. It was amazing. He welcomed that host with so much love, so much kindness.
This is in the documentary.
This is in that documentary. You have to watch it.
Yes.
And he goes, he opened it, he goes, I can hear Mr. T coming. I can hear Mr. T coming. And then he opens up. Mr. T was like, oh yeah, brother, right now, brother. That's that white snake. Yeah, took me a long time to read me. I'm not gonna read me. I'll pity the fool. And he goes, what have you got here, there, and there? And then he's, and then every time he's grunting, the host couldn't stop laughing like a little kid. And so what happened was afterwards when they interviewed him, they said, you were the only one who didn't audition. He goes, yeah, I didn't audition. All the other guys did, but not me. And he goes, you didn't have no input. He goes, no, I didn't have no input. And he goes, what was it like when you first met Peppard? So this was interesting to go to the main source.
Yes,
exactly, yeah.
Yes.
It was so interesting to know what was it like meeting George Peppard. And he goes, I remember the first day I met him. He goes, I walked by on set and this is my Mr. T.
Walk by on set.
Yeah. And he goes, I walked by Mr. T, I walked by Peppard, and I said, hey, how you doing? And he just went, yeah. That was it. He just addressed me like that to him. And he goes, I didn't say anything, I'm still cool. He goes, I didn't expect him to hug me and whatnot, but we still on the same team. And then it's like, they're telling the story about him, like, he had an amazing story from the rags to riches. But Mr. T turned into Peppard's biggest nightmare. Are you ready to hear this bit?
Go on. I'm waiting.
Right, yeah. Hands are warming up.
You're like a teacher to me. I'm just like, in all your knowledge.
And then so he goes, everywhere because Peppard wanted to be the biggest star, because again, he was the big star to begin with. And he wanted, everywhere he ran into, he just ran into Mr. T. He went to a like kids will run up to him in the street and they say to him, Hannibal, Hannibal, where's BA?
Oh.
Rub it in his face. Rub it in his face. Where's BA?
His ego is hurt.
His ego was massively hurt, yeah. And then what happened was when he went to a magazine, it was called People's Magazine, and they said, he goes, I want you to put me on the cover of People's Magazine. George Peppard saying that, and he goes, we won't give you a cover by yourself. If you get Mr. T, we'll give you the cover. Like, yeah, drove him crazy everywhere. Back to the kids. Hannibal, Hannibal, where's BA?
He was so used to getting his behind kissed by everybody.
Yeah.
All of a sudden Mr. T comes along, and now he's like, man, I do not like this guy.
Yeah, he didn't.
It was jealousy.
It was pure jealousy.
Jealousy.
It was pure jealousy because of, like I said, he was a drunk. He was a drunk for a while, but he kind of cleaned himself up before.
Which you got to respect him.
Yeah, which you have to respect him because it's not an easy thing to go over,
No,
especially when you're struggling.
Yeah, of course.
And here's another thing that really drove Peppard over the wall was he found out Mr. T got paid more than him. Because at that, yeah, exactly, yeah.
Damn.
Exactly. And he goes, at that time he was the third highest.
I know what money can do to people.
Yeah, he goes, at that time he was the third highest paid star on NBC network.
Account had so much more influence over every member of staff. Then it was like, we need to get a camera.
No, we're recording.
Oh, sorry, I'm going to the bathroom.
What time is it?
It's 35 past. Right, 3, 2, 1. And then, yeah, so exactly, yeah. But at least T wasn't being greedy about everything, was he? He wasn't. He was just talking about.
Yeah, it was fun.
He was sweet.
He was fun.
He was fun. He was like.
He wanted it to be purely for fun, right? And don't think that obviously you won't forget this, and people who love the AAT.
Yeah.
This was his first big job, so it was all kind of fresh to him, right? Being in a TV series.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for TV series for sure.
So
Yeah.
it was
but
fun
like,
for him. It was like long, you know. It took a long time to finish filming with each season, but
Yeah.
the guy absolutely loved it. It was fun to him.
Of course it was.
But
And
with George Peppard, he was kind of used to it, wasn't he, in a way?
of course he was. Yeah.
So he let money talk rather than having fun. It was more of a job to him.
Yeah.
But with Mr. T, it wasn't more of a job to him. It was fun,
Exactly.
and he was getting paid good money for it.
Exactly. Yeah.
So it's best to look at something with fresh eyes, isn't it?
Of course. Yeah.
You know
I mean,
what I
of
mean?
course. And
But still, the attitude stinks.
yeah,
you don't
it's
treat
like
a
that.
guy like that.
There's no point because eventually, if you look at it, Hollywood is like a factory. The film business is like a factory, whether you're in the US, in the UK, in India, or anywhere around
All over the world, yeah.
Yeah, it's like a factory. When you finish, another one will come over.
Of course.
When they finish, another one will come over.
Who came after Arnold Schwarzenegger?
Stallone.
The Rock.
The Rock, yeah, sorry, yeah.
Have you watched The Rundown?
Yeah, with him
Welcome
and-
to the Jungle, where The Rock walks into that club,
Yeah,
and Arnie walks past, goes, "Have fun."
yeah, it's like passing the torch.
Passing the
on.
torch.
It's passing the torch.
Passing the torch.
But like he didn't like the fact that like I said on the A-Team, Peppard didn't like the fact that he wasn't able to pass the torch.
Yeah, the
But
torch
he
was taken.
It was already taken.
Yeah, but
it was already
It's
taken.
tea.
Yeah, I mean it's like
Where did this guy come from?
Yeah,
I'm not
exactly.
ready to go yet.
I'm not. No, it's like and then another thing was when the show when it finished. Mr. T, unfortunately, at that time was then diagnosed with cancer at a certain time. But
Mr.
then,
T.
but then he beat the disease.
Pitiful.
I pity the fool who thinks cancer can put Mr. T down. And yeah, and then it's like what else happened was when he did. There was like certain episodes where people would complain about Mr. T. It's like that's impossible, Mr. T. You can't complain about Mr. T. It's just probably those people who are just jealous of him.
Jealousy.
It's just pure jealousy.
Jealousy.
That's what it was.
That's
Yeah.
what it is.
And then
Man's doing a lot better than you. Plus, back in those days, don't forget, the guy's black,
yeah.
and he's doing better than a lot of white people.
That's another thing that you mentioned as well, because another thing they mentioned on that documentary, Bring Back the A-Team, was Mr. T said, I was like, I think I was the only black guy on set, not just out of the actors, but out of the crew. He goes, sometimes they would get at I had a white stand-in a white guy for a stunt double. They would like put makeup on him or shoot him from far away.
Oh,
Shoot him from far.
makeup.
Yeah, shoot him from far away to look like, oh, it's Mr. T driving the car, or it's Mr. T fighting somebody. And he goes, then the interview goes, are you serious? And he goes, wouldn't lie to you, brother. Wouldn't lie
Wouldn't
to
lie to you.
No. And then they asked him as well, why did you wear all this? What was the story behind the gold and the gold chains? And he said that, and this was really sweet, and I respected this, and I always respect this. He goes, it was symbolic of my African heritage. Mr. T's African heritage, where his ancestors were brought in from Africa on the ship, shackled by their wrist, their neck, their ankles with steel chains. He goes, I took the steel chains and turned it into gold to symbolize the fight, that I'm still a slave, except my price tag is much higher. I was like, oh yeah, definitely. And then he goes, we love you, Mr. T. He goes, thank you, brother. Thank you, thank you. Thank you, brother. So yeah, I mean, it's like, he had an amazing story, rags to riches, Mr. T. He came from complete poverty. He says, there's an amazing quote I read about him on the net. He goes, me and my family were so poor that we couldn't afford to pay attention.
That's powerful.
That is powerful. And then he goes, when he won then he got into the gym. He went to university on a wrestling scholarship, but he got kicked out after a year.
Why did he get kicked out?
Don't probably know. Yeah.
Research.
Huh?
Research.
Probably research. Yeah, we'll do a bit more research on that. And then what happened was afterwards when he did the world's toughest bouncer contest, and then that's where Stallone saw him. Stallone actually wanted a real life boxer to play Clubber Lang, and then he goes, I like the look of this guy, the mohawk, the gold chains, let's get him on board. He goes, I have no acting experience, don't worry about it, just be yourself. Did it. Done. And like I said, nobody but, and you have to look at it this way, Clubber Lang, you want to hate that character, but you can't hate that character because of the actor playing him.
Yeah.
It's like you can't hate Mr. T, he's unhateable. He's just, everyone's raw, he's like a role model.
Doesn't matter how much he tries to be hated.
He can't be hated.
Loved.
Yes. And then also, there's another thing that you mentioned as well, when on that show, on the documentary, when they were talking about it, Mr. T got invited to the White House. And he goes, you're not going to the White House. He goes, I'm going to the White House. He goes, you're not going to the White House. Right. Next day, they see him on the picture with Nancy Reagan sitting on his lap, kissing his forehead. It was just so funny. It blew them all away. It just blew them all away. And then he just like, he goes, that'll upset everybody.
For a short space of time to go from
being a bouncer,
kind of in the sewers,
yeah,
to Cloud 9,
yeah,
or in space.
That was definitely in space.
To do that in just a short amount of time.
Yeah.
Man, is it that? Hey, that could be us one day.
Yeah, that could be us one day. You know, say, you never know what's around the corner.
Exactly.
You never know what the future holds. It's just all.
He would never have expected something like that.
I doubt it. No, I doubt it. But it's like, they always ask him, why are you still so humble? He goes, because of my mother. He goes, whenever you look at me, this is Mr. T's exact words, he goes, whenever you look at me, I'm nothing but an overgrown, tough mama's boy. And which is, he respects his
Only
honesty.
you can say that.
Only he's allowed to say that.
You try to say that to him.
Yeah, he'll level you out. And then you look at he got into the pro wrestling business, he got into the, he was back in the movie business.
He wrestled Hulk Hogan.
No, he wrestled with Hulk Hogan.
Wrestled
With Hulk Hogan and the first ever WrestleMania. And then you had Muhammad Ali there as well, which was just epic. And then you had quite a few of those legendary wrestlers back in them days.
Andre the Giant.
He was
Ultimate Warrior.
No, Warrior wasn't back then.
Oh, he was later on.
He was a bit later.
Andre
on
the Giant
then,
was there, wasn't he?
Definitely. But like Mr. T, you got to hand it off to him, and like, he came from far away, and he's emerged anyway. He's emerged, and that was what was amazing about him.
But the thing is, he never expected this.
Yeah.
So
he expected the unexpected.
Exactly. That's what curveballs. That's what that is. Curveballs. A lot of curveballs can be bad, but the unexpected ones, most of the time, are good.
Yeah.
That's the thing about life, isn't it?
Oh yeah.
We know a lot about that ourselves.
Oh, of course we do. But it's just how you tackle it is what counts.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course. Building character.
Yeah.
Mr. T style.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, fool.
I'll pay the fool. And so you gotta admit, back in the 80s, everyone tried to mimic that haircut, didn't they? And then also I found out that, because everyone always asks him, you know, what does that haircut mean? He goes, it's not a mohawk, it's not punk rock, it's about it's like I say, it's about the African tribe that he belonged to. They were called the Mandingo warriors.
Okay.
And that's where the hairstyle came from. Originally he was going to cut it into the letter T, but he couldn't do it. And then that came along. I think he read about that in a book somewhere. And then he did a bit of research that he's connected to this tribe. And then that's how the legendary
Wow,
mohawk came
okay.
up. That was amazing. Well, I say it was amazing. And then they asked him as well, how come you don't wear the gold anymore? And this is really sweet. He goes, when Hurricane Katrina hit, people lost their homes, they lost their lives, they lost some family members. And I don't feel right if I walk around flashing my gold in people's face.
See, that's respect.
That is way respectful. Yeah.
That is respect.
Yeah.
It's like if you actually go around a poor area in a flashy car.
Yeah, you're rubbing it in people's faces.
Exactly. But if you don't do that and you just walk around like most of them do around
Yeah.
that area, that's respect.
Yeah.
So it's like him doing that.
Yeah, and he
That's
says, no more will I wear the gold. The gold will be in my heart. I'm not going to flash it out to other people.
He knows he's got it.
Yeah.
He doesn't have to flash it.
No, he doesn't. But again, humbleness at its best.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You don't forget where you came from.
But he didn't know where he came from, but he decided where he was going to go himself.
He came from a humble background, and he'll always be in a humble background.
Yeah, the city of Chicago. Yeah.
Exactly.
So, would you like to talk a little bit about the movie, or no?
No.
No.
That's not
There's only one A team.
We won't talk about the film.
No, there's only one A team, and that's with Mr. T's crew. Yeah.
What he said.
What he agreed with. Alright, cool. So we're going to wrap up the podcast now, and again, thanks, brother, for coming in as
Yeah,
well.
it's alright.
Mr. T. Thanks, brother.
No, it's full.
Hey, you want to take this outside?
No, you
No, you
beat me up, man.
No, I'm a nice guy.
No, I won't fight you.
I'm a
I
nice,
love you too much.
I'm a nice guy. Right. So yeah. So again, thank you very much for coming in, Aiden, and hopefully we'll be back on the next episode as well. Where we're going to be talking about modern day TV, and we're also going to talk about a few shows from the 90s as well, and which shows we liked, and then Aiden's going to actually get me hooked on a show as well.
Or will.
So, yeah.
He's got the 18 for me.
Yeah.
I've got something for you.
Appreciate that.
I'm
And then
doing that very soon.
definitely. So again, thank you very much, and please subscribe to the channel, and we'll keep you up to date with everything as well. So always remember, until next time, the 80s rocked.
They do rock.
They do rock.